they can bear down and dig deep from within. One of the dialogue partners I've had the privilege of collaborating with is Antonin Maillet. Antonin Maillet is the first non-French citizen who ever won the highest award in French literature, le Prix Goncourt. Antonin Maillet, when she was in our dialogue session, we did the same thing. We took her writings, we removed her name, and I read out to her what the learners had written in dialogue with her, not knowing it was her. And Antonin Maillet is, she's a giant in literature, but she's all about this tall. But she stood up, and as she heard what the learners were writing, she said, wow. And she says, this is creativity. And I said, and I hasten to point out, she holds a doctorate in literature, but she decided to become a creative writer rather than an academic. And when she said, well, this is creativity, I said, what do you mean by that, Dr. Maillet? Ladies and gentlemen, what she told me continues to resonate in my ear. Creativity is finding out what you know, but you don't know that you know it. Now we could get into psychology and Freud and Carl Jung, of course. The whole revelation. What does James Joyce do in Ulysses, which some consider the greatest novel written in the 20th century? Because after Freud, after Carl Jung, everything has changed. They began to realize there is so much inside us that is unconscious, that is subconscious. So we create a space where you can unlock the golden nuggets you've got inside. Even if imagine that you're 20 years old and you have lived what this person wrote. And yet there is hope. Because of the gifts you have. Now we're gonna let other people who didn't get to ask a question yet. Yes, sir.
What are some of the criticisms you face from your colleagues? Because I'm sure your method has been criticized by more than one person. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the criticism and your response to that?
Well, you have to understand they've never given a reason for this.
No, just like maybe some of your colleagues addressed you and said, well, I think that this is wrong because of that, blah, blah. I'm just wondering if you had that experience with someone criticizing that directly.
They found it very unusual.
Okay.
Now, why did they find it unusual? Well, you just read something that is rather revealing. You just heard something rather revealing. What did I introduce into the university classroom that in a post-enlightenment, post-age of reason, post-rationalist world, you must exorcise at all cost? I introduced the affective. Because I came to the conclusion that the cognitive and the affective must work hand in hand for learning to happen. In other words, teaching without touching the person is like Teflon. It just slides right off. And that I would say was the biggest point. How in the world? I mean, honestly, this was not academic what you just heard. But I believe in reality-based education. What is the relation, as a religious studies scholar, what I want to know is where the rubber meets the road in religion. I don't want just pie in the sky, the hypothetical. I want to know, how does that translate into action that makes our world a better place and me a better human being? Now, I'm really into YouTube, mea culpa, but I think about what they sing. What will we leave behind? That's where I'm at. What what will I leave behind? Yes?
I'm just interested to know if, because there was so much reflection work being done by your students, did you actually read every single thing?
And that's why I knew them so well. And I mean, because they're writing in a stream of consciousness vein, we do not worry about grammar, syntax, spelling, just let it rip.
Excuse me, but didn't you say that they were writing anonymously?
Yeah.
So then...
No, I was reading what they wrote anonymously.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the distinction.
Right.
So I knew, if they were having a bad day, I knew it. But shouldn't that inform our teaching? I mean, we've got good days, we've got bad days. Why don't we go with the flow that's in the class? And that's how we knew it. I was taking the pulse of our learning community. And I knew the areas where they were struggling and the areas that excited them. I knew what was going on between these 2 years. Because uncensored, unedited, and unplugged, they were writing it. And how could I, ladies and gentlemen, though I'm an academic and a religious studies scholar, how can I remain indifferent to what I just read? We have a responsibility as pedagogues. It's a moral and an ethical responsibility. If you see someone drowning, you don't say, well, that's not on the course, that's not in the course path. You throw them a lifesaver. You know, oh my, I can't find this on the syllabus. And that they're writing. I mean, let's be honest too, ladies and gentlemen. I'm dealing with many students who come from different countries, from different languages, from different cultures, and who are coming from a space, personally, that can be tough. Many of the students, I mean, the divorce rate in Canada is about 50%. Divorce impacts your students. So let's address that. I actually did an entire dialogic session on the impact of divorce on students. And I did it with a film, an animated film, entitled 2 Divided by 1. And it was a documentary by an Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker, Joyce Bornstein. And she came into the dialogic session. When you're only one child and you've got 2 parents who are going in 2 totally different directions, the sheer in which you're caught is impacting your university experience. This explains why I work a lot, as I will next month, with psychiatrists and with psychologists. One of the world's foremost philosophers is our dialogue partner next month, Charles Taylor, of the Bouchard-Taylor Commission. And we're going to discuss religion, immigration, and reasonable accommodation. And we're having preparatory sessions with transcultural psychiatrists. Now, I love that expression, transcultural psychiatrist. If there's karma, I want to come back as a transcultural psychiatrist. Because essentially, it's the marriage of anthropology and psychiatry. In other words, what's happening to the people in Quebec as a result of meeting other religions, other cultures, other languages? How are they processing this individually and collectively? Other questions, comments? Yes?
What portion of education do you think should be academic versus, say, more emotion-oriented or development-oriented, personal development?
Well, I would say I would be careful of a false dichotomy. I believe that is a false dichotomy to say that to separate reason, to separate the cognitive and the affective. And indeed, I would say that is the thin edge of the wedge. When we took the affective out, when we take it out of education, we are removing the fuse that makes us explode as learners.